Everyone, welcome to Budget Commander. On this week's episode, we'll be doing a $100 budget deck tech for Yuriko. Our game plan with this deck is to play low converted mana cost evasive threats that are able to get our ninjas in through ninjutsu, in which we're able to draw cards off of Yuriko's second ability and take extra turns. Now, how we're going to win is off of Yuriko's second ability, where she drains all of our opponents. Now, let's talk about some of the stats in this deck. So the deck cost breakdown, you're looking at about $97 without the commander and about $103 with the commander. Now, if you're able to search around a little bit on TCG Player, maybe eBay with a coupon, you are able to find this deck for well under $100, including Yuriko, which has been going down a little bit over the last couple months. Now, this deck has 24 creatures in it, 10 of which are ninjas. It also has 9 card draw spells, 12 targeted removal spells. It has 6 counter spells, 4 board wipes, 3 extra turn spells, 7 ramp cards, and 34 lands. Now, the cool thing about this deck is we do play a lot of split cards because it works well with Yuriko's second ability. So a lot of these cards are counted like the targeted removal spells. Also, some of them have counter spells on them. Some of them have card draw. They do have dual purpose, a lot of them, which is great to have that flexibility in this deck. So let's talk about some of the creatures that are in this deck. So first up, we have ninjas. Now, ninjas have an ability called ninjutsu, where you pay a cost and you return an unblocked attacker you control to hand. And you're going to put that creature onto the battlefield from your hand, tapped and attacking. The cool thing about ninjutsu is the creature comes in unblocked and attacking, so your opponents aren't able to block your ninja. And they all have this ability on them that basically says when they deal combat damage to a player, something happens. So for example, Ink Eyes, Servant of Oni, says whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may put target creature card from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. Okiba Gang Shinobi says whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player discards 2 cards. Silent Blade Oni says whenever it deals combat damage to a player, look at that player's hand. You can cast a non-land card in it without paying that card's mana cost. This is a really powerful ninja, one of the most powerful ones that you can put in, especially on a budget, because you can basically cheat mana cost, which is really powerful in the game of Commander. Now, Higger the Steel Wind, it basically says when it deals combat damage to a player, you may search your library for a ninja card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. If you do, shuffle your library. It also has the ability that says target ninja creature is unblockable this turn. So this serves 2 purposes. This is going to get your powerful ninjas out of the deck for you when it deals combat damage, and it's also going to ensure that your ninjas get the damage through because they're going to be unblockable if you don't have a way to pick your ninjas back up and put them in your hand to ninjutsu them in, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well. Throat Slitter says whenever it deals combat damage to a player, destroy target non-black creature that player controls. So this has removal on a stick. Mistblade Shinobi says whenever Mistblade Shinobi deals combat damage to a player, you may return target creature that player controls to its hand. So it's another creature that has some removal attached to it. And then we have Skull Snatcher that says when it deals combat damage to a player, exile up to 2 target cards from that player's graveyard, which can also be really good in the game of Commander where people are doing some graveyard shenanigans and whatnot. The next set of creatures we're going to talk about are unblockable creatures. Mistcloaked Herald, Goodall Lurker, Triton Shorestalker, Slitherblade, and Invisible Stalker all are unblockable. This is great for being able to get your creatures through unblocked so that way you can ninjutsu in your ninjas. Next up, we have evasive creatures. These creatures are hard to block, which makes it easy for you to be able to get your ninjas in with ninjutsu. So we have Cloud of Fairies, which is 1 in a blue, has flying, and when it comes into play, you can untap up to 2 lands. So this is a free creature to play. It also has cycling, so if you get this late in the game, you don't need the creature. You can always cycle it away and draw a card. Nightville Sprite is a flying creature that has Surveil 1, so this will also help you set up the top of your library for Yuriko's second ability. And then we have Vampire Cutthroat, which basically has Skulk and Lifelink, and is a 1/1, so this is another hard creature to block. Let's talk about some of the cards that we're able to use to ramp into some of our big game-ending cards later in the game. So Dimir Signet, Soul Ring, Talisman of Dominance are all budget mana ramp cards, and the cool thing about them is they cost 2 mana or less, which is great to be able to ramp into some of your ninjutsu abilities and some of the other little 1-drops. Next up we have Cold Steel Heart, Mind Stone, and Felwar Stone. Each of these costs 2 mana, and they all add 1 mana to your mana pool. Mind Stone has the extra ability of tapping for 1 and sacrifice it to draw a card. So with Mind Stone, if you don't need the mana later on in the game, you can cash it in and get a card draw off of it. But all these come down early and let you ramp into some of your bigger spells in the deck. Next up, we're going to talk about some of the card draw spells in the deck. So Portent is 1 mana, and it lets you look at the top 3 cards of target player's library, then put them back in any order. You may have that player shuffle their library and then draw a card at the beginning of next turn's upkeep. So this is a great way to manipulate the top of your library to make sure that you have something big on top when your Yuriko is about to trigger. It also lets you draw a card as well. Then we have Factor Fiction, which is 3 and a blue for an instant that says reveal the top 5 cards of your library, and opponent separates those cards into 2 piles. Put 1 pile into your hand and the other into your graveyard. This is just a classic, really powerful card draw spell, and it's also very budget, so it goes into this deck just fine. Next up, we have Manifold Insights, 2 and a blue for a sorcery. It says reveal the top 10 cards of your library, starting with the next opponent in turn order. Each opponent chooses a different non-land card from among them. Put the chosen cards into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library. I've been really impressed with this card. I run it in a lot of my decks. 53 cents for this budget card. Basically, you're going to get the 3 worst non-land cards in the top of your deck. And if you build your deck in the right way, any 3 cards that you get are going to be pretty useful to you. So this is just a great card draw spell to draw 3 for 3 mana. Let's talk about some of the ways we're able to interact with our opponent throughout the game. So I'm going to break this down into removal spells, counter spells, and then mass removal, or like bounce. So first up, we got Reality Shift, 1 in a blue for an instant that says exile target creature. Its controller manifests the top card of his or her library. Then we have Snuff Out for 3 in a black for an instant. This one, if you control a swamp, you may pay 4 life instead of paying Snuff Out's mana cost. And it says destroy target non-black creature. It can't be regenerated. And then we have Curtain's Call, 5 in a black for an instant that has Undaunted. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each opponent. Destroy 2 target creatures. So the Snuff Out and the Curtain's Call are a great way to cheat some mana costs, basically making this spell cost less, but it also works great with Yuriko if you flip it off the top of your library. Curtain's Call, for example, costs 6 mana, and you're only going to pay 3 for it when you have 3 opponents in the game. So it's a great way to deal 6 to all your opponents with Yuriko's trigger. The next set of cards we're going to talk about are counter spells. It's another way that we're able to interact with our opponent throughout the game. So we have Arcane Denial, which is 1 in a blue for an instant. Counter target spell. Its controller may draw up to 2 cards at the beginning of next turn's upkeep, and then you may draw a card at the beginning of next turn's upkeep. Then we have Silumgar's Command, which is 3, a blue and a black for an instant. It says choose 2. Counter target non-creature spell. Return target permanent to its owner's hand. Target creature gets -3/-3 until end of turn, or destroy target planeswalker. And then we have Insidious Will, which is 2, blue for an instant. Choose 1. Counter target spell. You may choose new targets for target spell, or copy target instant or sorcery spell. You may choose new targets for that spell. I've been really impressed with Insidious Will. I run it in a lot of my decks. It's just a really great card because it gives you 3 different modes to choose from, and it's really budget. It's only costs like 40 or 50 cents if you pick it up on TCG Player. This is a card I would look to pick up soon because I have a feeling that these cards are going to go up in the future. So when single targeted removal and counterspell just don't get the job done, we do have a couple of board wipes in the deck in the form of mass bounce spells. These work out really well with ninjas because you're able to return all the ninjas to your hand and then you're able to ninjutsu them back in for extra value. So we have Evacuation in the deck, which is 3 blue for an instant that says return all creatures to their owner's hand. This is really powerful because it is an instant. You're able to use it at instant speed, and if you get into some trouble, you're able to just bounce everything back to their hand. Then then we have Coastal Breach for 6 and a blue for a sorcery. This one also has Undaunted, which says return all non-land permanents to their owner's hand. So this is really great if you were to flip it off of Yuriko with the Undaunted cost. It would deal 7 to all your opponents, which is really powerful. Then we have Devastation Tide for 3 blue for a sorcery that says return all non-land permanents to their owner's hand. But it does have an alternative miracle cost for 1 and a blue. So you can basically cast this if it's the first card you draw this turn. If you reveal it, you can cast it for its miracle cost for 2 mana. Since our win con is to win off of Yuriko's trigger, where you flip the top card of your library when the ninja deals combat damage to a player, one way we can get more of those combat triggers off of Yuriko is to take some extra turns. In addition, extra turn spells typically cost a lot of mana, so it is a great card to flip off of Yuriko as well. Take, for instance, the Temporal Trespass costs 11 mana. So first up, we have Part the Water Veil, 4 blue for a sorcery. Take an extra turn after this one. Exile Part the Water Veil. It does have an Awaken cost where you can pay 6 blue, and then if you cast it for that cost, you can put 6 +1/+1 counters on target land you control, and it becomes a 0/0 elemental creature with haste. It's still a land. Then there's Temporal Trespass, 8 blue for a sorcery, which has Delve. So basically you can exile cards from your graveyard while casting this spell, and it pays for 1 generic mana for each one you do. So this one says take an extra turn after this one, exile Temporal Trespass. And then we have Karn's Temporal Sundering, which is a new one out of Dominaria. 4 blue for legendary sorcery. You can only cast this if you have a legendary creature or planeswalker out. And this one says target player takes an extra turn after this one, return up to 1 target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, exile Karn's Temporal Sundering. So you can actually pick your Yuriko back up if you need to use ninjutsu to get another trigger in, or one of your ninjas as well if you have a good ability with it. Now let's talk about some of the ways we're able to close out the game with some high converted mana cost spells that you're able to flip off of Yuriko and deal some major damage to your opponents. So first up, we have Delve spells. So Delve says each card you exile from your graveyard while casting this spell pays for 1 generic mana. So these spells are overcosted spells, but you're able to utilize your graveyard as a resource when casting them. We have Treasure Cruise, which is 7 and a blue for a sorcery that has Delve on it. It says draw 3 cards. Then we have Murderous Cut, which is 4 and a black instant that has Delve and says destroy target creature. And then we have Dig Through Time, 6 blue for an instant that has Delve on it and says look at the top 7 cards of your library, put 2 of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So these are really great if you flip off of the top with Yuriko, but they're also really powerful spells on their own. So Murderous Cut is a way to kill a creature, and then Treasure Cruise and Dig Through Time are ways to draw cards off the top of your library. Next up, we have split cards. So the way it works is you'd combine both sides of this card to get the total converted mana cost of the card. So for example, Rags has 4 converted mana cost and Riches has 7 converted mana cost. So when you flip this off the top of your library with Yuriko, this card will deal 11 to all of your opponents. So this is really powerful with Yuriko, and all these cards have legs on their own. So Rags is 2 black, all creatures get -2/2 until end of turn. And then Riches is 5 blue for a sorcery with Aftermath. So these basically say you cast this spell only from your graveyard, then exile it. So this one says each opponent chooses a creature he or she controls. You gain control of those creatures. Then we have Commit, 3 and a blue for an instant. Put target spell or non-land permanent into its owner's library, second from the top. And then Memory, which is 4 blue. Each player shuffles his or her hand and graveyard into his or her library, then draw 7 cards. Then we have Never, which is 1 black to destroy target creature or planeswalker. And then we have Return, 3 and a black, exile target card from a graveyard, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Next up, we have Spite and Malice. Spite is 3 and a blue for an instant that says counter target non-creature spell, and Malice is 3 and a black for an instant that says destroy target non-black creature. It can't be regenerated. Then we have Far and Away. Far is 1 and a blue for an instant that says return target creature to its owner's hand, and Away is 2 and a black for an instant that says target player sacrifices a creature. And then this says Fuse, so you may cast one or both halves of this card from your hand. So how that would work is if you wanted to cast both, you'd have to pay 3, a blue and a black to cast both sides. Then we have Consign to Oblivion. Consign is 1 and a blue for an instant. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. And then Oblivion has Aftermath, and it says target opponent discards 2 cards. If you found our video helpful and you liked the video today, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, like and comment. We appreciate all the comments and the feedback that we receive. That'll help us make our videos better. Thank you so much for watching our video today. Stay tuned for our next episode.